Hi everyone, welcome back to Featherstitch House. My name's Rebecca and each week on this channel I make videos about embroidery and textile art to help you get creative. We're in week 3 of our final panel for this year's Winging It project. We only have one more week to go after this before the final reveal on the last Sunday of December. So I hope you're getting excited about coming to a close on this project. Today we are adding some evergreen to our panel, so we're going to create some evergreen foliage to decorate the borders of our panel, and I've taken quite an unusual approach because I've already bound the panel. So I did say last week that I was going to do it. I have done that off camera, but don't worry, I'll put a link into a video to show you how to do that if you aren't sure. I've done that because I want my foliage to come outside of the frame, and so I needed my borders on before I put on my foliage. So it's going to be fairly simple this week. You'll need some twine, a bit of felt, some embroidery thread, and if you have an awl or something that can poke holes, that would be useful too. So gather all your bits and pieces and let's get stitching. Okay, this is where we got up to last week. So in week 1 we made our snowy hills background, and then last week we created our music and lyrics for our Christmas carol. So in the meantime I have trimmed back and bound the edges of my panel. Now if you aren't sure how to do this, I have covered it a number of times through the year. I will link a video up here that shows you how I went about this. It's just a double layer and I was tight on fabric, so I've sort of cobbled it together on that side, but on the whole I've bound it all the way around. And so we haven't normally done this so early in the process, but I want some of the rest of the things that we put on to come over the borders, and so that's why I've done it this way around. So I've got here some twine. This is quite thick twine, and we're going to use it for branches because I thought we could add in some greenery to our panel. So I'm just going to cut a length. We're going to put it on quite roughly to start off with, and then we're going to do some couching to couch it down. Okay, I found a needle that I could get my twine to go through. I'm not sure, it's quite a blunt needle, so I'm not sure that this is going to puncture my background. So what I'm going to do is use an awl to create a hole. So I've just got a normal awl here, just a pointy one that it gets thicker as it goes. So once you've done that, if you want to enhance that hole a bit, you could use something like a chopstick if you've got one that will go through. So we're just making a way in for our twine. So it's going to take a little bit of manoeuvring to get it to come through, a little bit of twisting. And once it's through, you're fine. So I've just knotted it there. It will be a little bit lumpy, but once I'm confident that this is secure, I can let it go. So I want to just create a bit of a swirl here. I'm going to find somewhere to take it back through the fabric. So I'm poking through with my awl again. So what we're going to do is put on some evergreen plants. I've got some different thicknesses of twine. This is particularly thick, I have to say. I could have made life slightly easier for myself by using a finer twine, but I want a sizable chunk, decent sized branch. It's not as hard as I'm making this look. I just have such poor grip in my hands. I'm making a bit of a meal of it. If you don't have twine, you could use just normal wool. That would be fine as well. Quite happy for this to be quite curvy. I'm not going to finish that off because I don't know how much I'm going to need yet. So then I want a thread that I can use to couch with, and I've got some of this variegated pearl cotton here, so I thought we could use some of this just to do the couching. So I'm threading that up into a needle, and I'm just coming up from the back of my panel, and I'm going to just hop over. So I've come up one side of my branch, I'm going to hop over to the other side and pull through, and that will put a little holding stitch on, and then I'm just going to come up again a little further along, hop over and back down on the other side, and I'm just going to manipulate my twine so that it forms something kind of branch like. These little stitches are going to hold that in place. And help me create a curve, because you can't stitch curves with a single stitch. We can do stem stitch, and there are stitches that will follow curves, but you can't make one stitch into a curve. So couching is a really good solution. I quite like that this is a variegated thread because it's not going to look samey. We're going to get some nice kind of texture from the couching. So I'm going to put a couple of these on, one on each side, and then I'll add some extra branches coming off. So it's just wool or twine laid on the surface and couched down. A little bit like how we made our tree back all the way back in January. We made a tree on a watery landscape scene, and that was done in a very similar way to this. We used couching. So I hope everybody's well. I hope you're all excited about the possibilities for next year. If you haven't seen that live stream that I did about the plan for 2025, I will link it up here so that you can go and watch it. But I'll just summarise. There's far more detail in that live stream, but I'll just summarise so that you can get an idea of what's available. So I'm running 2 projects next year. I've done Winging It for 3 years now, and it will continue into 2025. We're going to do a different project. So we've done a book, we've done a quilt, we've done a wall hanging journal that we're just finishing off now. And so next year we're going to create a little sketchbook, and we're going to fill it with tiny little pieces of slow stitch, and it's going to be fairly random. So I've got some pots that I'm going to pick out of each week. We're going to call it the Winging It Pick of the Pots project, and we're going to improvise a piece of slow stitch based on what we pull out. So we're going to pull out a colour, a stitch and a shape, and we're going to do a very small 7 by 10 piece of slow stitch. So this is a great one to use up your stash. I'm going to work on felt, and we're going to just have some fun improvising with stitch. So we're going back to how Winging It started, very small pieces of stitch each week. Sometimes we might go pictorial, so we might make it look like something. Other times it will be completely abstract and it will just be about playing with the stitches and shapes. We'll see what comes each week, but it's going to be a nice, simple, quick project that you should be able to do in a very short space of time. So I'm hoping that we can film it as live, and it'll need very little editing. We'll just create our piece and put it in our book each week. So there's a link to the book that I'm using in the description below, and you can go and have a look at that and get the same one if you want to. If you want to do bigger pieces, that's fine too. But so that's going to be our Sunday video. That'll be the free video each week on a Sunday, just like we've done for the last 3 years. So kind of back to how Winging It started. So that's the first project. The second project, though, is going to be very different. That's going to be a subscription project. So over on Ko-fi, I'm going to release a video each week where we're going to use textile art and embroidery to create a very small piece, postcard size, so 6 by 8 inches, no, 6 by 4 inches, very small panel that will go in a box, and we're going to create a bit of a field journal or nature postcard journal. So it's going to be called Postcards from the Hedge. That's going to be a paid subscription. So if you just want the videos, that will be £4 a month. If you want the patterns that go along with those videos, it will be £6 a month. So with that one, you'll get the video and the pattern that goes along with it. And I'm also going to do a supplementary poem linked to the theme of whatever it is we've stitched. So if you want a little bit of a poetry tutorial as well, or literature, most of the time it will be poetry, but sometimes it might be an extract from a book or something like that. So if you want the poetry content as well, that will be £8 a month. So that's for the whole lot. So the video alone works out at less than £1 a week, and then for the pattern option it's an additional 50p a week, less than, because some months have 5 weeks in them and you don't pay extra on those months. So that is all starting in January. So as I say, you can go and check out the live stream that I did about it and get all the information and details there. But I would absolutely love it if you would join me again next year. And I know there's lots of people that have watched the videos but haven't made their own journal this year, so you haven't necessarily stitched along, you've been watching while you've been doing your own stitching or whatever, and by all means carry on with that. No one's obliged to stitch along, but it would be so great to see what you're stitching and stitch together. So I'd love it if some of you joined me with that. It would be great. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be fun. So just putting on my branch on the other side, I'm going to skip forward on this and save you having to watch me just doing loads of straight stitches. And I'll come back when I've got all my branches in place and we'll do the next stage. Okay, there's my branches. So what I want to put on is some ivy. I know that holly might be the more obvious choice, but I think ivy's quite an interesting shaped leaf. So just wanted to show you how... Lost my pencil. Just wanted to show you how to draw an ivy leaf if you want to. So it's basically a 5-point star like that. So if you put in your 5 points like that, it's basically a stick man. Look, just put a head there. This is the basic shape. So what we want to do is create a leaf at the top that's sort of curved V, and then we're going to put 2 curved lines out horizontally like that. Then we want a curved line coming in just a little way like that, and then we can go round to our 5th point like that. Now the bottom of this leaf is kind of flat and then it goes in, so it's almost like an L shape there at the bottom, down and then out flat, and that's essentially the ivy leaf shape. You can play around a little bit with it, make this leaf, this lobe of the leaf at the top a bit bigger if you want to, but that's essentially the shape that you're going for. Now, obviously that's going to be way too big for our panel, so I've just made a teeny tiny template like that that's going to be about the right size, and I'm going to use some of our forest green felt that I selected last week. So I had loads of fabrics that I'd fished out last week and this felt was one of them. So I've just got my heat erase pen and I'm just going to draw around that template a few times. Okay, I've cut out all my little ivy leaves and I've got some green pearl cotton. It's a similar shade to the felt but not quite, so I think it's gonna stand out quite nicely. And so now I'm going to attach my leaves. So let's just put one here to start off with. So I want to come up, just up from that point at the base of the leaf, and down at the base of the leaf, and then I want to essentially create veins on my leaf, and I'm just going to do this with straight stitches. So come up at the tip of the leaf and down at that central point. Now I'm not going to glue these leaves in place first or anything like that, because I want to kind of let them be a little bit mobile. So because these stitches are going to be quite long, I'm just going to put a little couching stitch halfway along each of these veins. So up at that central point, along to the end. Might find it easier to work just inside the tip of the leaf rather than over the end of it, and then you're less likely to have the felt shredding or anything like that. So it doesn't matter whether you work leaf tip to the centre or the other way around. Either way will work fine. This is a wool blend felt that I'm using, but you could do this with any felt that cuts nicely. So probably wouldn't do it with an acrylic felt because you won't be able to get the points in quite the same way. There we go. So that's my first leaf on. I think that's super cute. And we're going to just pop some leaves all around those stems. I don't want to cover up the stems, so just want to be careful that you're not totally obscuring the stem as you go. So I thought this reminded me a little bit of another Christmas carol, The Holly and the Ivy, which is another one that I really love. Using plants, basically evergreen plants, as metaphors for sort of love and sacrifice and all of that kind of thing. So we're featuring quite a few. But I thought we needed some evergreen on this one. So if you prefer, you could do holly berries, or you could do like pine tree branches or mistletoe, whatever you like really. Whatever foliage you think looks good. And if you wanted to, you could do your leaves in different colours, different shades of green. You do some variegated ones if you wanted to, by adding some stitch like we did before. Maybe on our mushrooms. So you could do a bit of thread painting on your leaves if you want to. But I'm really liking the way they're looking. So you get the idea. I'm going to add in some more, and then we'll come back and have a look and see if it needs anything else. Right, there's my ivy leaves. Just loving that. They're so cute. I wanted to add a little bit of frost, and so I've got the silver thread that I used on the background, and I just wanted to pop a little bit along the edges of some of these leaves. So I'm just going to put a straight stitch in, and we're just going to couch it again like we've been doing. So just a stitch along the leaf and a little couching stitch over the top. And I'm not going to do every leaf, just want to put a little bit here and there. So a little bit over there, and then I can hop over to this leaf here. And maybe along the top where it's sitting on the green border fabric, because I think it'll stand out quite nicely there. So I'm just putting in these little couching stitches halfway along the longer stitch. So I'll put one end of the leaf down at the other end, just guide it along. And a little anchoring stitch. So I'm going to put some of that on. Just bring it up close so you can see. So just a little bit of sparkle here and there to add a little bit of definition and just lift those leaves ever so slightly. So just a long stitch with a couching stitch over the middle. So I'll work on that, and then I think we'll be ready to leave it for this week. We've just got a space down here for something for next week. So I'll come back when I've added my shiny stuff. Okay, there we go with our ivy leaves for this week. So I've got my little silvery sparkly bits over the top of the leaves and my couched stems that are adding in my foliage. So you could add more if you wanted to. You could add some holly and some holly berries. You could do whatever you like. Pine cones, fir tree branches, just a little bit of evergreen to add a little bit of life to this panel. So we've just got a little space down here that we've got to put something in next week. So do come back for that, and it will be our penultimate video of the year for this year's Winging It project. The last one is going to be just a reveal of the whole wall hanging, hopefully in situ, completed and all stitched together, and I'll tell you how I've gone about doing that. So thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see your evergreen additions on your panel. If you are sharing, you can use our private Facebook group, and there's a link to that in the description below. And if you're sharing on Instagram, don't forget to use hashtag FSH Winging It 24, and you can tag me at Featherstitch House, and that way I'm more likely to see your creations. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great week adding your ivy or evergreens, and I will see you very soon in another video. Take care. Bye.